Hi friends, well we've got there, episode 100. That's not bad, is it? I really had thought though that by now we'd have had this bus out on the rally season, but yeah, RTs, they're hand-built vehicles and it takes forever. Winter's closing in, as I've mentioned before, and I really do want to get the outside of the bus back on. Working on the back of the bus still. I think I found some more dents. So we put that grey on the other day, you may remember the previous episode, and it showed up everything. I could see some more dents and some more bits and pieces that need to be done. So I'm hoping, boringly, to tackle that this week. However, to mark our 100th edition, I've got two of my good friends popping in this weekend. One of them's Austin Blackburn, who runs Go Coach, Go Bus, down at Swanley, not to be confused with any other business that has the name Go in the front of it, and my very good friend for many years, Norman Kemp, who runs a new venture also down in Kent. So hoping to see them and do a bit of an industry catch-up this weekend, all unfortunately off camera, but Austin's really keen to come up here to see how I'm getting on with the RT and hopefully give me some of his thoughts. Yep, so with the winter closing in, and it's actually light outside at the moment because I'm a little bit later today. Yeah, so I'm going to get started with this. And as usual, in the next bit, the picture of the field outside, which I take every weekend when I get here, we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, right. Thanks for that. Unfortunately, we really didn't get a lot of work done on Saturday because with Norman and Austin turning up, as soon as they're gone, along came Mark Davis and Peter Veers. So Saturday I didn't get a lot done. So Sunday really was the main day that I got some work shifted. But it's still a lot of work to do. Right, let's get started. Right, so let's start with the back of the bus. Oh, gosh. It just goes on and on, doesn't it, unfortunately. Now, you remember this? This is that little rear lamp box that I sort of refurbished a few episodes back. And it fits in this space here. But before we can put it back, we need to get out all the old screws. Now, all of these screws were stubborn. Just above that pair of mole grips, you can see that little bit of masking tape. And they are little reminders that I stick on things. And it actually says all screws have failed. There was about 10 screws holding that box in. And they go all around that little wooden frame. Now, I've seen far worse in terms of wood on an RT. This isn't too bad, as a result of which I'm going to save it. So firstly, I'm going to try and get out as much of those screws as possible. If they don't come out by the use of the mole grips. Now, I'm still going to drill them out anyway, but the use of the drill is the only other way around it. Now what I'm doing is I'm drilling, that's a 6mm drill bit, and the intention is that now there's a bit of metal in there, so that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to get around it without making it worse. Sometimes I think on this one I actually managed to get the mole grips in there and then remove it, which saved me drilling out too much material. Right, and then once all those holes are drilled, it's time to stick the dowling in. This is a bit of glue that I pop on the end. Now, this one didn't go too well for some reason, so I needed to do a little bit more drilling. So I decided, won't bother with that. I'll go to the next one. So yeah, over there, there's a small bit of glue on there. And the other thing about these little dowling sticks, you might remember, I've got a bit of a thing. If you look around the shed, you'll notice that masking paper gets reused. Everything I can gets reused. These have actually been used as sticks. If you have a look on these, see different colours on it, to stir my paint. So yeah, it's getting a second life, doesn't go in the bin. There we are. So that needs to be done. I'm not going to bore you with all the rest of it, but I had to do all the ones down that edge there. But you can see the nice little wooden frame that's there, which clearly is not that old. Well, it's old, you know what I mean. But it's I think it's been replaced at some point, probably at Aldenham. Maybe it just rotted out. But the back of the bus is not in too bad a condition. So this is what it looks like after I've stuck those dowlings in. I think I got a little bit carried away with that one first in shot there, and I caught it with the little device I used to cut the doweling. But anyway, the other bits you can just see on the right hand side there, I haven't yet got to that. There's another 3 that need to go in there. But sticking the doweling in really works because it gives me sort of fresh wood to get stuff back in. There's also a couple of screws on that outside edge there. They needed to come out as well, but again I won't bore you with that, but you get a general idea. But sometimes when you're taking stuff off, it's you know, these screws are not going to give up without a fight, and unfortunately, you know, whenever you come across a wood screw or even these bolts at the top there, if I want to take that, actually they're not too bad, but I've seen there's others that have rusted away quite badly, and the only thing you can do really is just cut them off with the angle grinder. Right, sticking with the theme of the back of the bus, this little plate here, which is about, well, I don't know, 8-10 inches I suppose, had obviously been kicked around a few times and it had a load of nasty old dents in it. So what I needed to do was I took it off and have straightened it up a little bit and put some filler in and generally tidied it up. So now it's time, after having been resprayed with all the rest of the paint, it's time now for that to go back on. I also had to make the, there's 2 little sort of beading plates that go across the top. When I took the old ones off, they were pretty cream crackered, so I decided it'd be just as easy to make 2 new ones, which are shown here. Do you remember these corner panels that my mate Alan made for me? Right, well here they are sitting on the platform just after Alan delivered them. Well, actually I think I've had a go at a DA at one of them, but anyway. So these 2 are needed to be prepared and got ready to go back on the bus. So the first thing I did was to DA them off and then spray them with that really nice grey paint, the etching primer. And now what I've got to do is I've got to mark them up and put the little holes. There's a series of holes that go all around them. On RTs, I think it's in the thousands and the hundreds and whatever. So there's a load of little securing holes that I've got to drill around it. So I'm marking up on this shot ready for those holes to be drilled, and once I've done that, then I'm going to put another quick coat of grey over the top of it, and then when I'm ready to do all the green painting, they will go into stock ready to get painted, and then once they're dry and I'm ready, they'll go back on the back of the bus. Hopefully that's the plan, although plans never really work, do they? Right, so that's a good little segue into paint issues, and you might remember from, I think, one of the previous episodes where I mentioned that my plan is to throw a quick coat of paint over it. In this case it's acid etch primer, and then that shows up all the dents and stuff that I missed when I did the first trawl. It is a good process, but what I need to do is, this is an etch primer. It you DA, or certainly as you just saw just now with those corner panels, you use a DA, which gives it a good little etch into the metal. Old metal is normally all right, but I still DA it again anyway to try and remove any crud. Now, you might notice, bang in the centre of that advert panel, there's a bit of masking paper, and you might wonder, well, perhaps you didn't, what it's doing there. Well, the reason for that is that I had a bit of a reaction with the paint underneath. When I'd sprayed that side blind box, I'd done a little bit of overspray. I thought, I'm not really too bothered. I didn't mask it up, and I just oversprayed it. So I ended up with overspray there, which was the final green sort of colour. Unfortunately, when I went to put this grey over the top, it found it and decided it didn't like it, and it went like paint stripper. So I ended up with the paint going all wobbly. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You can quickly rub it down, and a couple of goes at it. Funnily enough, it calms itself down. But I didn't really want to take any chances with it. So with a new grey in situ, I was able to see some other areas that needed filling. It is just an ongoing task. Yeah, I know Brian's pointed out they never used it at Aldenham. There is definitely a little bit of filler on this, which I assume has been put on in London Country Days, but not worry about that. It's not huge amounts. The problem is, in order to do this roof dome the way that Aldenham would have done. It would have removed the whole thing, and that's probably going to be a major job. And as you're already aware from all the other stuff, I really can't get fully onto the roof of the bus. So yeah, so here is a few bits that needed filling. Right, I laid that one on quite heavy, didn't I? This is the offside corner panel, and I spotted a little sort of indentation in there. It was only a slight one. Probably didn't need this much filler, but this is a little bit wee bit zoomed in. You might notice that there's a bit of pitting on the panel above. That's the that back panel that wraps over the emergency exits, the sort of the final bay of the RT. And I've got a plan for that. The most of it is actually hidden by the beading. There's a strip of beading that sits on top of that, so we won't see it. But with a filler, there is a few examples of that sort of hanging around, and I'll show you my plan in a minute. But anyway, this is another bit that needed a bit of rubbing down. Here it is, having been rubbed down and ready for me to put another coat of grey over the top. And here's yet another one. So I keep finding them. I keep finding these places that need a little bit more filler. There is a bit of danger though, and I was talking to one of my colleagues at work the other day. You can't just keep piling filler on, because you don't actually know if, when you see like a little ridge or sort of a gully in it, that it's not the filler that's either side that's making it look like a ridge. But if it's metal either side, then clearly you've got to fill it. But you just got to be very careful with filler, because it can give you a false sort of a false profile, really. So having dealt with all that filler, now it's time to give it a bit of a light rub down, and then another very thin coat of that grey etch primer. So the next coat that's going to go over the top is going to be a primer filler coat. And the idea of the primer filler is it covers those little pits that you saw earlier on. But it wasn't, I've never used this paint before, and it wasn't going to go quite according to how I thought it would. Okay, so we're up on the roof of the RT at the moment. Now, this is a primer filler paint. Now, I've used primer filler before, but this is a different type to what I've been used to. It's this stuff. And what it requires is, on the side of the can, you can see these little little bottles. It requires a very small amount of this hardener to go into the paint to make it go hard. So the paint that I used on the back here, the original primer that I'd used, which is just underneath here, the acid etch primer, I'd used about half a litre. So I thought what I'll do is, because that paint, this primer filler paint, is a lot heavier, so I thought I'll make up maybe about 750 millilitres. So I made up a load, popped it into the gun, and started to spray it. And it's quite lumpy, it's quite sort of abrasive. If you run your hands over it, it's a bit like anti-skid road surface, but that's what it's designed to do, because what it's designed to do is to fill all the holes, which you get when you're doing things like this. So unfortunately, it weren't covering as well as I'd planned, and I still had a little bit more in the gun. So what I wanted to do was to allow this to sort of harden off a bit before I put a second coat on. And that's what you normally do with most paint. So you make it up, stick it in the gun, and you know, off you go. And anyway, unfortunately, I'd kind of, not say forgotten, but I didn't realise how quick this paint was going to start to harden in the gun. So within about maybe an hour of it being in the gun, it actually then started to harden, and it's ruined my, this is one of my fairly cheap spray guns. This is only about 50 quid, I suppose. You can spend up to about 2.5 grand on a really decent spray gun. I don't need a decent spray gun for up here. I mean, this stuff's absolutely fine, but this is just basically the one I use to do the chassis and any heavy paints. This is not, I wouldn't use this on the stuff I've been spraying on the outside. I've got far more expensive spray guns than that. So this is just basically my little rubbish gun. And the interesting thing is, on here, it's got what's called a size 22 nozzle, and you can practically drive a train through that. So it's absolutely ideal for these heavy paints.
But when you get to using sort of, if you're using cellulose, the sort of stuff you put in your car, the finer the nozzle, the better. So you go down to, I think I've got 12, 14, 16, 18 size nozzles on the other guns. But this type of paint is so heavy, you can't use them sort of very fine nozzles. So you end up with this one, which is a really, it's quite a large nozzle. So anyway, unfortunately, the paint had hardened in the gun. So I spent probably about 2 hours cleaning the gun out. And I did a quick test of it, and the spray pattern is rubbish. So it's a bit of a shame. So I've sort of lost the gun really. But you know, it's a 50, 60 quid gun. I'll see how I get on. I might do a little bit more cleaning on it. But I did clean it right out using pipe cleaners and all that old stuff. So that's just a little bit of a painty-like disaster. So I'm going to this coming weekend, I'm going to rub down this ceiling, and we'll see what it looks like. Unfortunately, every time I do it, I then highlight a little bit more filling that I need to do, and more work. It's just an ongoing process with old aluminium. That you'll see things that you think, I didn't spot that. When the roof was originally rubbed down in silver, there was a multitude of different colours on here because we had fillers. I had obviously some of the original green paint where there were little sort of hollows in the panel work, and we put the filler in, but you end up with this sort of like a ring like you've got around Saturn. Of sort of greens, various hues of green and primers, and the original acid etch primer that I put underneath this, hated that. But this stuff, funny enough, is really very resilient. Anyway, there we go. So you've had enough of me now, and it's time for me to, as I say at the end of all these little bits, to get on with something else.
So we're not gone far, we've just gone to the rear window, this big back window. You might remember I deliberately left this off. I'd done the stuff at the top, that sort of stuff we were just looking at. A reason for me leaving this till last was because all sort of manner of detritus will come down while I'm working up the top there. You can notice in the bottom of the frame I've actually already put some filler in it. So I've temporarily covered this up with masking paper just to stop any spray or anything sort of landing on it. But I have already, although it's not very evident in that shot, you might notice it's a little bit dark, and the reason for that is because I've put a layer of this cure rust stuff on there. These window pans are really prone, being still, to rusting away. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just trying to get a little bit flatter, and I'm going to have to put some filler in that whole thing. I'm not entirely happy with that pan, to be quite honest with you. You're not going to be able to get another one, so we're going to have to work with this. So there I am. So first phase, rub down what you can, and then the second thing is, guess what? Throw some filler in it. Right, so abracadabra, there's the back window now all masked up. I'm not entirely happy with this. I think this is going to be a bit more work involved in this. I'm going to chuck some grey over it, and then I'll take a look at it, and if it's okay, great. If not, we're going to have to be, more filler and more messing around with it. But like I said earlier on, I'm not going to be able to get another one of these, so we're going to have to make do with what we've got. So, by way of relief from all that rubbing down panels, came my good friend Norman Kemp, who runs New Venture in Kent, and he brought with him his friend and my friend Austin Blackburn, who runs Go Coach or Go Bus down in Swanley. Swanley Garage, you might recall, held its 100th anniversary a few weeks back. So here's Austin jumping out of the car and saying hello. I haven't seen Austin for probably about 10 years. So it was really great to see him, plus the fact he and Norman wanted to have a look around the RT because they wanted to see how I was progressing with it. The balmy things we do. So anyway, there's Norman, and we then managed to retire after they had a little wander around and look at my bus. We managed to retire down to the local café for about 2.5 hours. So yeah, so it was really great to see them. It was so Saturday was really a very social day. Right, so I'll leave you with this. Other than the bus, I have been spraying other stuff. These are those corner panels you saw earlier on. So they've been DA'd down, and I've put a couple of coats of the acid etch primer. And there's a few other bits and pieces on the bench there. That one nearest those panels, that's the mud flap for the near side. And there's a little large corner piece beading which goes round the off side of the bus. And a few other bits and pieces. So hopefully they might get the green paint fairly soon, all going well. So that's a wrap on episode 100. We're now in the hundreds. I can't believe this. It's taken so long to do this, and as I said before, progress always seems so slow. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward to getting up the barn. I've got so much to do these coming weekends before the winter really catches up with us. So keep watching. Hopefully you're enjoying these. Keep commenting, because if you get something that I can use and include in this, I certainly will. I'll certainly reply to your comments when I get a moment on my usual weekly busy schedule at work. So thanks very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.